Sciberras, editor for Blitz. This is a World War II movie told from a child's perspective, largely. So how did Steve McQueen describe the film to you?
Very much just like that. I mean, he really talked a lot about London, a lot about the time, but mainly about the relationship between mother and son and the emotional connection being the kind of guiding light for this film, and just everything needed to kind of serve that purpose. And also, we kind of get to know London through George's adventure, and just I'd constantly ask him, like, so is that real? Is that real? And like every single moment in this film has been researched, and like every character is a representation of a real character for the time. Ife, the warden that takes in George and shows him around. Mickey Davies, the gang is kind of based on these real gangs that operated in that time, and so it's kind of just the authenticity was also something we really talked about a lot, and that kind of followed through every department. Sound, visual effects, everything was so precise.
hmm I mean, not to get too Dickensian, but it feels like a tale of two cities, but it's one city, and that's London. But it's like one is such an intimate story about this family and George, this boy who's trying to get home, and then obviously the larger, grander story of the Blitz and every night London's being attacked. So what was like cutting and balancing those two halves to make one cohesive story?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of George is kind of the driving force in terms of he's the one moving around, he's the one trying to get home. So it was really important though to kind of have Rita kind of I guess their stories needed to kind of mirror each other in a way and connect, and especially emotionally. So finding ways to balance how much of George can we stay with, and then how long can we be away from each character essentially. But also, it's kind of a story of day and night. Like night is terrifying essentially, and then daytime kind of gives you a little bit more space to kind of get to know the place and Rita's workplace, and um, get a bit more of a portrait of a city kind of going about its business while dealing with, essentially a horrible time at war and the terror of that. And also the fact that there was danger during the day, buildings would collapse, and, after a night of bombing. And it was like there was really no safety. So it was kind of keeping attention during the daytime was also really important. So it's just this hopefully low level anxiety throughout the whole movie, which kind of probably was, you know, if it represents a tenth of what it was like to live through that time, we achieve something, because, just the thought of it would be terrifying.
Yeah, yeah, that's one thing I really liked about the movie, how it's like you see everyone just going about their day-to-day lives because they have to, right? But
Yeah.
you never know when danger was going to strike. And so what was it like finding the right point to, I guess, like cut to the attack or danger?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of, I guess, scripted that way in a sense, but we did work with like Andrew Whitehurst in VFX to those close-up bomb shots that kind of there's they're not quite, they're a little abstract. They don't quite sit in a particular space or time. They're kind of attached to everything there, and they also give you a really interesting sonic signature that you can kind of play with in sound. So it was it was just about really kind of creating a sense that at any moment anything could happen. So it was really playing with expectation as much as it was like and hopefully kind of creating a sense that it could be any time. Like the first time we see Rita and George, they're kind of having a really lovely moment on the bed, kind of getting ready for bed or just hanging out, and then a siren goes off and things just go sideways, and kind of trying to maintain that sense that things could go in any direction at any time is like really what we work really hard on.
hmm And the film also has a lot of flashbacks too to show like, what these people like Rita and George were doing, or just like the scene in the cafe, like that whole like jazz like dance party before
Yeah.
the attacks. So I was like editing those sequences and having a contrast before uh
Yeah, they were much looser in terms of the way they were shot, they're stylistically quite different, and they also served a really different purpose. Like, I mean, a lot of flashbacks kind of give you a lot of information, whereas these flashbacks were really about emotion and just about representing what home was for George. A lot, them around the piano and singing, and just the safety and the comfort there, and the contrast to where he was when he was on the train and moving through London. So they kind of serve an interesting purpose in terms of they're not so much, serving plot or narrative, but they're actually just serving the emotional kind of core of the movie. And then the dance club was really fun. I mean, that's one scene we worked. I think we did more work on that, maybe than anything else. Kind of, we still tweaked that in the mix, and that was the first thing we sat down and cut together. But we just wanted that to be full of life and full of joy and excitement, because also that for a few reasons, like we need to meet Marcus, George's dad, and give a little bit of context there. But we've just had a quite tragic moment on the train tracks, and just to give the audience some life and some joy and some excitement in a different way, and to show, yeah, London as it was before the Blitz as well.
And I feel like having music it undercuts the tension of the moment. It makes you forget it for a second, like what you're actually watching. It's like a
Yeah,
nice moment. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and Steve loves the idea of like music as a way to kind of deal with trauma and bring people together. And I think there's a lot of singing in this film, like the people in the bomb shelter, "Show Me the Way to Go Home," and the way yeah, sometimes words aren't enough, and kind of music can do something for us emotionally that you can't really get anywhere else. So Steve really likes to lean into that, and definitely, I mean, the other jazz club later, when the Café de Paris, that's a good example of trying to create a sense of a place and a time and be as accurate as possible, because that is, Oh Johnny was actually what they were playing when the bomb dropped in real life. So every detail in there is so meticulously kind of put together, and accounts from survivors, and just so there's so much authenticity to those moments too, I think.
Yeah. And obviously, if anyone didn't know, Saoirse Ronan can also sing. She's
Very well,
the
yeah.
Stephen Winter coat. What was it like editing that scene?
I mean, that was all about emotion. Again, it's George has just left, and we know what's happening to George, but Rita doesn't, and she's just missing him essentially. And that was all pre-recorded with Saoirse and Nicholas Britell, and Tara Stetson wrote it with Steve. And it's kind of, for Steve, it was based on a story that, well, it's based on a winter coat that it's kind of the only thing Steve has of his father's, that after he passed away, that was kind of what he got, a winter coat. So it was very emotional on, from conception. And yeah, it was just about really just trying to find the connection again. We brought George into that scene. That was kind of not structured that way in the script. So we brought George in. Also, the Gerald shots, the grandfather, we picked up later and also kind of dropped into the scene, just to bring them all into that moment, and have Rita kind of, really kind of thread the emotional core of the movie, the family, into that one moment, and have everyone together in that scene, even though everyone's in separate places, was really crucial to kind of bringing it home as well.
Yeah, for sure. And well, there's several shots of daisies throughout the film, brief shots. And I'm assuming Steve was particular about the daisy shots. So what did you discuss about them, and when to incorporate them, and like the length of them?
Yeah, it happens 3 times. Once at the beginning, and it's Man Ray. It's a piece from Man Ray that we're using, so it is surreal art in its core. So it's really symbolic, and about creating space for the audience to kind of think about the bigger picture, essentially, and make connections that you can't sometimes make by being literal. And that was really experimental in a sense of where we use it. We knew we wanted it. Steve knew he wanted it at the start, and then as we went on, we were like, okay, we have it at the start. It needs to be more than that to kind of really, be important. So the end seemed like the most logical other place, especially with George and Rita's conversation coming back on the bed, make a wish, and just, I mean, hopefully leaving the audience. It's a pretty devastating film, I think, in a lot of ways. But to have a glimmer of hope at the end, just to have a little bit of hope, and really to put it in the audience's lap as well, kind of ending with make a wish and just hopefully reflecting on what you've seen and what's going on in the world right now, and be kind of, I guess it's good to get a reminder every now and then of what, we all kind of have choices we can make, and
Yeah, for sure. Well, Peter, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time. We'll see you back here in a little bit.
yes, thank you.
Marco Costa, editor of Challengers, Luca Guadagnino said this is not a tennis movie, but a movie about people, and his inspirations were a Frank Lloyd Wright building and Cabaret. So were there any other non-sports references you guys used?
Actually, no, because I didn't prepare myself before editing the movie. I didn't watch any sports movie before approaching the scene because I knew how Luca intended this movie and how he wanted what kind of movie he wants to do. So it was different approach. He talked me about the modernist building. He showed me this fantastic picture, and yeah, he told me I want an editing a language, an editing style like this building. So this was the only reference that he gave it to me. So it was funny.
The great references though, unexpected ones too, which
Yeah.
really work for the film. But I know he also storyboarded every tennis match that's in the film. So what were in like how meticulous was he about how each scene would be shot, like all the shots, and like was it like we need the forehand, a backhand here, like what was going on?
Yeah, actually, yeah, he told me he storyboarded all the tennis sequence, but I never seen the storyboard. So
Oh, he never showed it
I,
to you.
no, I never because actually I think it's a good thing for me because it was a good thing because I didn't influence it in any way before cutting the scene. So I knew that Luca had a particular vision for for the tennis sequence, but and he shot in a specific way every single moment of the tennis sequence. But no, I never was any of this drawing of this storyboard. So yeah, this was
Maybe they don't even exist. So he's
maybe you're right, and maybe it was a joke for me.
yeah. One thing I love about the film is how it plays with speed. Like there's so many scenes, and especially during the final match too, where it goes into slow-mo. So how did you guys achieve the slow-mo, and what was it like editing those scenes when you have to change the speed?
Yeah, I remember when I received all the footage of the last final sequence, the last scene. It was hours and hours of footage because he decided to shoot the entire sequence in slow-mo. So that means a lot of hours. And I went through for all the footage watching in the slow-mo time because I didn't want to, and I wanted to enjoy every frame and to figure out why Luca wanted to use all the slow-mo, all the shot in slow-mo. So, and I remember the first time he came to the editing room before working on that sequence. He told me, maybe we should give a try. We should try to edit the tiny sequence in completely in slow motion. So I thought, are you crazy? I mean, it's gonna be 3 hours long just this sequence. I mean, because he shot in 1,000 per frame, some setups, and it was crazy. And it was really tricky to do that because it was tough because the Challengers is a movie shot on film, so he has to find a camera that allow you to shoot in one in a frame rate like this. And he found this camera in Italy, and there is just three types in the world that of this kind of camera who allows to shoot 1,000 per frame, and it's a really a huge machine. It's incredible. And then we decided to speed it up some shots and to slow to break the rhythm, to be surprising, because Luca always say to me, it's important to edit the scene in a non-conventional way. Try to be surprising. Try a new way of to see the scene, a new vision, because it's important to find a new language for every tennis sequence, and because also you can see a progression in the language during the entire movie, and this is the climax of the movie. So we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it also adds to the tension, especially in the final match and in the climax,
Yeah,
right?
a lot of
Yeah.
tension because you need to enjoy. We took a lot of time in this, in particular moments, especially for the ball, the tennis balls in the neck of the racket.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's like the the moment, the light bulb moment for the audience too, and
Yeah.
they realize everything. I mean, the final match, I think it's such a great like symphony between like the editing and the music, the score, iconic score. And then also the sound, like because he also, when you're editing, you have to sync up their swings with the racket sounds, like the ball popping off. So what was it like working with the sound and also music? Did you have the score ready, or were you like editing with temp?
We didn't have the score yet before cutting the scene, so we decided to edit the entire scene mute without any sound. We don't believe in the music temp. We think that the music temp could be toxic, and we actually edited the entire movie without score. So we kept the music in mind, and because we didn't want to be influenced in any way by by using a temp score, a temp music. I want to be focused in the picture. I want to be focused in the scene. I want to edit the scene in a way I think is the way it needs. So we decided to edit entirely without sound, mute, and of course we create some moments, some specific spots where we knew that the score um, was really important for the score to highlight, to highlight this particular moment. So yeah, we decided to edit entire mute, and it was funny because we didn't have any visual effects. So the first cut of the last scene, it was quite crazy because no visual effects, no tennis ball, sometimes no racket, because the actors couldn't use the real racket because it was too dangerous for the camera, because they were too close to the camera. So not any. It was funny, especially watching the first cut and sharing it. And also we present a movie, we show the movie like this to Zendaya and to the studio without any score, without. So it was funny.
Yeah, so they're just swinging, nothing, just their arms,
Yeah,
nothing in their hands. I would love to see that cut though. That sounds great. So,
yeah.
because I see like how much work goes into it. There's one great shot in the final sequence too when all three of them are in the frame and Tashi's in the middle in the crowd and Patrick's on the left and Art is on the right and they're all in focus. So how was that put together?
Yeah, that's an intuition of Luca, and I remember when I received these three different shots in a separate way. He told me it is important because I want to merge these three shots and to merge into one in a unique shot. And unfortunately, he tried to do that with the specific lens on set, but it wasn't possible. So we had to recreate these effects in visual effects. So with the visual effects team, because he took inspiration from Brian De Palma movies, or also he did a shot like this in Suspiria with Tilda and Dakota. And yes, it was a great intuition. I think it's fantastic because you are just with them and you are like in another dimension.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Marco, it was great speaking with you again. Thanks so much for your time. We'll see you back here in a little bit. Juliette Welfling, you've edited all of Jacques Audiard's films, but Emilia Pérez is the first musical. How did he describe this story to you? Because it didn't start out as a musical.
Well, at first he wanted to do an opera. And then after meeting the musicians, he finally changed his mind to a film, which is what he usually does. So yeah, how did he describe to me? I don't know. It's difficult to describe because this movie is so weird, in a way, so crazy. There are so many different genres in this movie and so many different things that he talks about. Yeah, the pitch is a drug, a drug cartel lord wants to become needs or wants to become a woman, and voila, and that's it. But also it's about all characters. They all not only the transition of Emilia Pérez. They are all in a way of they all transform themselves during the film. And the thing that Jacques always says is, like, can we have two life? Are we allowed to have is one allowed to have two life? And how is it going to end if you have two life? What will happen in this second life? So that's how he described it, but not much more. I think it was very simple the way he described it. He didn't really
Yeah.
describe it, actually.
Well, how much experience had you had with musicals, if at all, before this?
None.
None?
No, but I watched. I've seen some musical, but not that many. I've seen La La Land, obviously. I've seen, no, I've seen Hair. I've seen a few of them. But not all that jazz or what they sing. But I haven't seen that many, and I didn't watch them again before starting because I knew that anyway this movie was going to be different, and I didn't want to like try to copy something. I want to, so I didn't even try to watch anything to get inspiration. I'd rather.
Yeah, because you're juggling so many different genres, and you have to make it all sync up in a way. But did Jacques have any like direction in terms of the editing and how he wanted to flow and cut back and forth between the sequences?
Not really. The thing is that Jacques, I always start like day one of shooting, and he never watches his dailies. He doesn't want to see the dailies because he wants to be in the next scene, not in the previous scene. He has to prepare for the day after. He doesn't want to get back to the day before, and also it's difficult to watch dailies because if you are not happy with them, then you're going to be scared for the day after, whatever. He doesn't watch them. And you know, we've been working together for a lot of years now, as I've done all his movies. And I think he trusts me, and I trust him, obviously. And he expects me to do something he wouldn't expect, you know. So he'd rather not say anything and discover at the end of shooting. He will discover what we've done. Of course, when there is a problem on a scene, he feels he had a problem that day, I will do a cut. I will send him a cut of the scene, but otherwise he doesn't want to interfere. He never interferes during shooting. Then when he comes to the cutting room, we start working together. But he wants to see a first cut that already looks like a movie, like a movie, and that's not too long. That will be. He wants that the first cut is not more than like 10 minutes or 15 minutes longer than the final cut is supposed to be. So it's you have to make choices, and he wants me to make choices so that he will have a surprise at some when he'll come to the cutting room, because otherwise he's afraid to be bored, I think. Because he always feels, he says, I wrote the script, I shot the script, now I want to be I don't want to the editing to be everything as I wrote it and as I shot it. I want to have surprises.
Yeah. So what was it like for you? You're editing your first musical and editing to the rhythms of the music, but also the drama of the story.
Yeah, well, I first was thinking about the drama of the story, and obviously you have to stick to the tempo and you have to be very rigorous when it comes to choreographed scenes and scenes with songs. So yeah, this I learned because I hadn't figured out that it was so rigorous before. I didn't realize before that I would have to stick to the click tempo, things like this. I hadn't even been thinking about it, you know. I was just thinking, oh, wow, it's going to be fun, music, dance, I love it. But I didn't think about the technical issues. But then, yeah, I mean, it has all to intertwine, you know. I didn't want to make difference between dance scene or musical scene and drama scene. To me, they are all the same. They're all drama, and is in particularly in this in Emilia Pérez, when very often when a song starts, it's kind of it's part of the scene, and you don't know that they are going to sing, that someone is going to sing, and it starts singing, but the singing is also the lines as if it was the script. I mean, it tells the story. It's not everything stops and then you have a song. No, it's never like this. It's always like a fluid way to go from drama to singing or dancing. So that was, but it was also shot this way, so it was not that difficult. I mean, it was kind of
Yeah,
natural.
because that's I know, yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. I mean, especially the first number with Zoe Saldana's character, you have like that, what you're talking about is like it is like fantastical, they break out, but then it also goes back into reality, and then goes back into the fantastical again. So what are the challenges of that when you have to go back and forth?
Well, I think she does it, you know, Zoe does it when she's acting, and the choreography does it. And so the editing has to follow what and of course the directing, Jacques, I mean, you know, and everything goes in the same way. So you just have to be part of this process and follow what you feel they wanted to do. And it's very I don't know if the audience really notices when it's fantasy, when it's reality. It's all mixed, but no one can, because this isn't a realistic movie, you know. It's all like totally, I don't know. It has nothing to do with reality. So you can do whatever you want in a way, you know, because it's just trying to. I always just try to put myself into the character's head, like what would Zoe think? What would Rita, the character, think at that point? What would Emilia think? What would and that's how I work. I don't think about technical or whatever. I only think about this. I would I would like to be the character, and that the edit reflects what the character has in mind. The other thing, the rest is not important, I think, to me.
Yeah. Well, since the film is so heightened, does that give you more freedom to experiment? But at the same time, you're kind of tied to the music.
Yeah, you're tied to the music.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That was a problem to me because I hadn't realized that before. Because usually when I cut really freely, you know, I don't care about match cuts or whatever. I don't even think about them, and I'm not even sure. You know, I've never been to film school. Well, and I never learned the rules. Well, after all these years, I know the rules, but I want to ignore them. I don't want to know them. So, but here I realized what with choreography, which is really so precise, and singing, which is really so precise and has to totally stick to the tempo, I couldn't do, it was less free, obviously. But in another way, it's easier because you don't have freedom. So you just have to follow the track. Yeah. So I was mixed because something I thought, oh, I would like to have more freedom, but sometimes I would think, oh, that's okay because it's going to go much faster to cut this because you just have to stick to the. So yeah, it's a bit constraining. Do you say that a bit annoying to me? It was a bit annoying to have to do that. Follow this very rigorous, but fun in the same way.
So sometimes it's a little good to have like, tiny bit of rules, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It helps sometimes.
Mhm. Well, Julia, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time. We'll see you back in a little bit.
Mm.
Nicholas Monsour, have you ever edited a first-person POV movie like Nickel Boys before?
That would be funny if I had. I no, I'd never edited anything like Nickel Boys in terms of its first person POV nature, and I'm tempted to say no one has, but I don't know. I'm sure there is this weird lineage to that format and that idea peppered throughout film history, and even, commercials and music videos and video games and all sorts of things. But yeah, no, I had and certainly not with the kind of psychological and emotional ideas that Rommel was bringing to Nickel Boys. I was unaware of any reference for that, and certainly not in anything I'd done. I'd used that in you will in a sort of more traditional film come across first person POV as a device occasionally where you just want to go right into clearly tell the audience this is what that person is observing, but it's usually pretty brief, and often it's usually used to invoke fear or terror. You think of like somebody peeping through a keyhole or something. There's usually something nefarious or going on. So anyway, it was an interesting new palette to work with for sure.
Well, what was your first thoughts when Rommel brought this to you and told you this was what he was planning with the he calls it a sentient camera.
Mm-hmm. Well, Rommel and he's a fabulous interlocutor of ideas. We can talk about the ideas almost too much to the point where occasionally our producer Jocelyn would have to come in and say, "I know you guys are having fun talking about the ideas, but we do need to finish the movie also." But when we first talked about it, I think it was very clear from the script, and having read the novel, and I could kind of plot the trajectory from Colson Whitehead's novel to the script, which was different in significant ways. The distance between those two, I could kind of imagine where we're then going from there in a way. I don't know if Rommel knew that I had, like, we had to test that, and I had to test if I was interpreting what he wanted to do correctly. But you know, we talked about some things, so much about the script and the book, but definitely the script structurally and in its language has to do with these kind of three ideas of like researching the past, remembering the past, and misremembering the past, and creating a new story, and how those three things are sort of similar and sort of different. And so even outside of the POV thing, there are many sources for that kind of language out there, about specifically about, you know, like I think I mentioned, like, offhand, we were talking one of the first times we spoke, and I was, I think, asking him about Tarkovsky's Mirror, and which is a film that really deals with kind of childhood memory and how that gets translated into cinema. And anyway, I think we connected on certain sort of lodestones like that early on, but you know, was really just fascinated by his plans for this and how fresh and kind of unencumbered by concerns about traditional structure and visual storytelling, and how much broader of a language he was looking for, using, you know, the art world and many other visual cultural kind of influences.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know he and Joe Frey, the DP, they made a shot list of everything, and their plan was to shoot things as a one, or even if it was going to be edited, and they did that with editing in mind. So I'm assuming you were privy to that shot list. Like, what were those conversations like?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think I hadn't worked with Rommel before. I was just a big fan of his artwork and his previous film, Hale County, and and same with Jomo. I had seen his work with All Dirt Roads, Taste of Salt, and, you know, and Jocelyn, the co-writer. So I came in sort of like fully trusting them, but I think they were a little bit like, yeah, we don't know. So I think I had to work on, I don't know, I guess it was just a constant dialogue, I think, really, and testing ideas and showing, kind of like being a band member with them, where, you know, you pick up what they're doing and then you improvise a bit, and you gain that kind of rhythm as you go, as you're playing together. But yeah, I you know, they had the wonder idea. I think, you know, my first question was, okay, let's seriously time that out then, I think, was my only kind of request. It's not uninteresting to work on a film with less edits. It's still the same process in a lot of ways, where you're intuitively reacting to what you're seeing and feeling what you're feeling and seeing, is this what I want to be feeling here, and how should we tweak this? And that might not be in the edit, that might be in the sound, that might be in the music. And there's lots of invisible things going on in the editing besides cuts, which are subtle, which might have to do with slightly altering the image framing, or you know, adjusting like the speed of a clip, or things like that, which are all involved in the edit process. But anyway, but I think pretty quickly it wasn't that they couldn't have made the film that way. I think they continued to evolve past that, where they kept discussing it with the actors and looking at the real locations, and actually getting behind the camera and doing the tests, I think, is what led them to think it doesn't have to be that literal to still capture the feeling of being embodied in the camera.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like you mentioned, there's a lot of imagery in the film, like a lot of impressionistic montages and archival footage. What was it like curating that footage? I'm assuming Rommel had a lot of them in mind already, of what the non-negotiable needs to be in it.
Well, certainly he had a lot in mind. And again, I think I don't know that anything was non-negotiable. I think there were things he was very attached to, but they were always I think honestly, I think a really there's all kinds of filmmakers, but very often a more confident, mature filmmaker is really they're really setting themselves up to have the right materials to continue to experiment rather than plotting it out exactly and then just filling it in. And I think he really did a great job of gathering an initial batch of material, both that he captured, both on set, but also in more experimental methods like the time-lapse boxcar footage and some other things that might even read as archival footage in the film that he created. So I think that plus having some researcher and a research, academic background himself, he had, the script had like YouTube links embedded in it that you could see sort of what he was thinking about. But we continued to find and pull and change things, and it really became a process of getting as immersed as possible in the story, the characters, the setting, and the ideas, and then using an intuition the same way you use an intuition of deciding when to cut to a new angle. You're feeling an intuition to sort of expand the language into this archival image, and when that makes sense psychologically to go into a different non-literal kind of image.
Yeah, it really works, especially at the end there. So, well, Nicholas, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time. We'll see back in a little bit.
Okay.
Myron Kerstein, you did In the Heights with John Chu. So when did he bring you on board for Wicked?
He brought me on board about 3 years ago. I was finishing up Tick Tick Boom, and which is another musical. And yeah, it was when somebody tells you that you're going to do a film that is going to be really challenging. At first, you're like, "Yay!" And then you're like, "Yay!" Like this is going to be really, very challenging. And it was an 8 month shoot and 155 days between two movies, 250 hours of footage, but at the same time, we were all John jokingly said to me, "We've been training for this all our lives," and so between the musical films I've worked in, just on indies and other musicals like Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and then of course In the Heights and Tick Tick Boom, I really felt like I was in a good place to at least start on something this big, and then of course I had amazing team behind me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious, like, because this is a two-part movie, does that affect your approach to the editing at all? Or is it still just, this is one movie and part two next year is a different movie, or are you trying to look for some through line in your editing between the two?
I mean, it was sort of like block shooting in television where I was getting 2 different episodes, and so I had different projects to help the assistants organize the 2 movies. But I was, basically bouncing around 2 different different tones, and so that was challenging to know where I was going at any given moment. But of course, I had the musical from Broadway to help guide me a bit, but I had to kind of put that away because it's our own adaptation, and so I just tried my best to cut scenes the way I thought John was trying to tell them dramatically, and he gives me a lot of freedom in the edit to approach the footage any way I want. So I just tried to cut the scenes and try to keep up as much as I could, and then we put the second movie. We did finish an assembly for both movies from the get-go, so I've seen both movies, but we put the other one to sleep for a bit while we had only the bandwidth for the first one.
Mm-hmm. What did you and John discuss about the first film, which is very much about Elphaba and Glinda's relationship, and we see it come to fruition. They go from enemies and roommates to BFFs, and then all this drama ensues. So what did you guys discuss about pacing that relationship in the first movie?
Well, first of all, he told me that we're making The Wizard of Oz meets The Lord of the Rings, and then the greatest love story that's ever been told. And so I was balancing the fantasy elements of this epic, but at the end of the day, it is about this two relationship. And look, it's really challenging to have all these, to have a relationship develop so quickly. And then by the end of the first movie, you're rooting for both of them, you're feeling heartbreak. And so you have to balance, how long should they be enemies? When do they come together as friends? When they feel torn apart, do we actually feel like that feels earned? The centerpiece of the movie was this scene called that takes place in the Ozdesk ballroom. And we always felt like if that scene didn't work, the rest of the movie basically fell apart. So we basically spent a lot of time really trying to milk every little moment in that scene and make sure and feel bold with the way we're telling that scene, because if we didn't feel the heartache and feeling Elphaba feel ostracized and bullied and made fun of, and we didn't feel how alone she was, yet she was trying to find some power, and then if we didn't feel that sort of moment when Glinda makes this gesture towards her and they're bonding because of that, then the rest of the movie would just not work. And so, again, John shot 10-minute takes of wonders of basically this scene from start to finish, where I would just have to figure out. And by the way, every take made me cry. The same way as the finished scene. And so it was really challenging because I didn't know where even to begin, because every take had a lot of resonance and felt emotional. So trying to construct something that intimate in the middle of this fantasy and being really bold about silence and feeling really uncomfortable, ultimately, I think work. Hopefully the audience feels the same way about it.
Yeah, because it's a different kind of music and dance scene there, and you're editing more for like vulnerability, right?
Yeah, I love it. Chris Scott is an amazing choreographer. He worked with Cynthia Erivo to make this sort of strange deconstructed dance. And that coming back together as this sort of this gesture of bonding and love is nothing I've ever seen before. And a lot of people at first are like, is this working? Because it's so weird, And but again, to be really bold and just trust in that the intimacy is working is we just sort of swung for the fences and hopefully it connects with the audience.
Yeah, I think it starts out, you're like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then you get kind of sad because she's lonely by herself and being bullied. And then it becomes lovely when Glinda comes in. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just trying to what I love about that scene is that it's part of a bigger dance number, which is Dancing Through Life. And at the beginning of that scene, of course, it's Fiyero who's leading the rest of Shiz, and they're following his lead as far as like how to rebel and his dance moves are sort of mirrored throughout the background dancers. And then at the end of it, it's actually Elphaba and Glinda that the rest of that the Shiz and the rest of the people in the Ozdesk are following. And so I just love how that bookends to make this sort of powerful moment of acceptance.
Yeah, for sure. Now Wicked fans have been waiting for a movie for 21 years. Like, do you like feel that pressure, like to satisfy fans, a lot of them who've had, something pictured in their minds of what a film would look like, especially for, like Defying Gravity, the signature song, and that, closes the first film. Like, do you feel that pressure, or do you try to like keep that out of your mind when you're editing something like this?
I mean, in the beginning, it's terrifying because something that is so beloved by so many people. There's millions of fans of this material. But like a lot of similar to how we worked with Crazy Rich Asians or In the Heights and even Tick Tick Boom to some extent, you do have to sort of put it all away at some point and just say, I'm going to make what I'm going to make and approach the footage like any other scene. And then, when you're working on something like Defying Gravity, which is arguably the most famous musical number of all time of the history of Broadway, you have to sort of, again, put it away and say, okay, I'm going to try to make this as powerful as I think it's supposed to be. But if I'm starting to feel something and I'm feeling the power of it, then hopefully the audience will too. And so I think we pulled that off. But yeah, it's really like it's a balance between like what do the fans want and like we just have to make what we're going to make. And there's shots in Defying Gravity that took a year to make with VFX, and we kept judging the cut the entire time. John does not have any rules as far as constructing a musical number. He likes to break songs. We start and stop songs all the time. There's no rules as far as like, I use a click track as well, but also we throw it all away. Like we just break every rule there is in order to tell the story and to feel the emotion. Like right before the big war cry, we literally stop the song again for maybe the sixth time, and build up suspense because we know it's coming. And, her jumping out of the building, we think that there's a famous moment where in the song, the original Broadway song, she sings, "It's me," and that's supposed to be the big build up on Broadway. And instead we break through the window and she starts free falling. And so we're really playing with suspense and storytelling and building up these moments in different ways. And hopefully, not tricking the audience, but just sort of, keeping them suspended and keeping that drama sort of as tight as possible.
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely work. You add your own flavor there, and you need to for film, right? So it's not exactly the same as the stage play. So, well, Myron, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time, and you get to stay on because everyone is coming back. Welcome to our Meet the Experts editing panel. Today we're joined by Peter Sciberras from Blitz, Marco Costa from Challengers, Juliette Welfling from Emilia Pérez, Nicholas Monsour from Nickel Boys, and Myron Kerstein from Wicked. Thank you all for being here. I'm wondering, what was the first scene you've ever edited? It doesn't need to be something professional, but maybe like a home video when you were a kid. Peter, how about you?
Wow. It's going back. Let me think. It was the first thing I ever edited was actually a music video for a housemate. He was directing a music video, and yeah, it was pretty lo-fi. It was very low budget. It was all set in a friend of a friend's basement. That was really fun.
And that's how it all started. You got the bug from there.
Literally how it all started. I literally looked up the best, the most well-known music video editor in town and started working for free, essentially, and shadowing him. That was it.
Well done.
Similar. Me and the kids in my neighborhood would make these ridiculous horror and sci-fi movies on a VHS camera. We would do the VHS to VHS editing, if anyone's old enough to remember that. Yeah, so that was and it very quickly realized, like, why isn't this just as easy as I think it is to make movies look like movies? It's funny how quickly that you realize.
You're just supposed to point and shoot, right? That's it. Yeah. Anyone? Marco, how about you?
It's funny because actually I think it was I shot like a really short film. And I shot it with the Lego toys and it was a novel written by Alessandro Manzoni, is a popular novel here in Italy. and I shot it with a Lego, and it was everything was shot in stop motion. So I shot a lot of picture, I shot of photos, and then I put it together. But I really wanted to do something, you know, to try to play with the narrative, to play with the images. So it was funny. I think it's still on YouTube. I should remove that thing because
No, keep it there, bro.
no,
I'm
no,
gonna
I
watch
think
it
it's
after
really
this.
embarrassing for me. Totally embarrassing.
You made the first Lego movie, right? Yeah, there you go.
Not exactly. But I use also some other kind of brand, so it wasn't just a Lego. I used also a castle by Fisher Price or something like that. It was really embarrassing for me.
Yeah, we have to use what's around, so yeah. Juliette, how about you?
Well, I think it was much more classical, you know, because as I'm probably the oldest in this group, it was at that time it was 35 millimeters, or it was on film, you know, so it wasn't you wouldn't do that so easily. So I guess no, just cut friends shorts. Um, that was how it started. I can't remember which one it was, and it probably anyway isn't on YouTube and has never been on YouTube. But yeah, that was how I started, I guess. Yeah, that was fun.
Myron, how about you?
That's funny. I'll give you two quick examples. One was when I was first starting in college, before I even knew I wanted to be in film. I did actually these photo series with myself in it, and I would just take like hundreds of photos and I'd like put them next to each other. So in a weird way, like that was the beginning of my editing process, because I was like, this image goes in front of this, what have you. But then I did make a short movie a short film with on 16, and I cut it myself. And it was the first time I'd used music to something. I used Higher Ground, Stevie Wonder, and there was a bunch of people walking around with suitcases through a town, and it was really bad. But but I love using music next to it, and it definitely gave me the bug of using music and trying to manipulate images. And yeah, and also friends would come to me and say, do you want to cut this, because no one else wanted to do it. So right away I fell in love with it.
Laziness can breed a career. There you go. So all of these need to be on YouTube so we can watch them. Well, I feel like one of the biggest misconceptions about editing is that a long movie in runtime means bad editing, but editing is about pacing. So how would you explain to a lay person, a regular person, the difference between the two, and why a long movie doesn't necessarily mean it's poorly edited?
Well, what do you mean? Because a long movie can be a movie where the story is like a lifetime story, and this justifies that the movie will be long. It doesn't mean that the pace will be slow. So I don't. What do you mean by that?
No, I think some viewers might think if you see a movie is like 3.5 hours, it's like, oh, that's way too long, so that means it's bad editing, which I don't agree with. But how do you explain? Yeah.
I don't have this feeling, because I mean, I think nowadays movies, at least the one that are released in theaters now, are much longer than they used to be, because they used to be like an hour and a half. And I have the feeling that now maybe people don't want to go to a theater just for an hour and a half. They want to, you know, they are paying for something. They want to really, and most of the movies that are released in theaters now are really, really long, like often more than 3 hours. And I don't have the feeling that it's for people it means bad editing or whatever. It means, wow, we're gonna have a lot to eat, to watch, to whatever. It's gonna be so rich to see all the a long thing. Well, that's what I think, but I don't know.
John and I were always struggling with length on Wicked, because it's a 2 hour and 40 minute movie. But we found the more we try to cut down, the more we try to condense, the less power and emotion it had. And if we're going to make a music like The Sound of Music, make a film like The Sound of Music or The Wizard of Oz, or give them a good old-fashioned Hollywood saga, like we needed to give them this journey. And I would say that if we're telling the story correctly, if we're keeping hold of the audience dramatically, then it doesn't matter what the length is. You know, I've seen 90-minute movies that feel like 4 hours long. And so I think it's just that we have to make sure every beat is earned, that the audience is feeling emotion, and that and ultimately, give them what they're paying for. They're paying like $20 to go see a movie. I mean, go sit in the theater and enjoy this ride. We have on Wicked, we have thousands and thousands of people that worked on this thing to deliver this piece of magic. And I think that at the end of the day, we haven't, maybe Hollywood has broken its promise of what we should deliver. But if we can give that back to them, maybe they'll sit in there for whatever amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've seen like 3-hour movies that fly by, so it's like it's not about the runtime at all. Nicholas, how about you?
I mean, I think there are various contracts you make with the viewer, and I think there is an awareness you need to have of that if you are going to sort of knowingly flaunt that or not. I mean, I do think every film, I mean, and I think editing is where this really gets the most focused, is, you realize the sort of emotional and conceptual scope of the material when you're really testing the edits, and like how much does this need, how much does it earn. And part of it is subjective for sure, but part of it is this bigger picture of like, what is this movie in the culture, where is it going to be seen, who's going to see it, and what is that understanding? Because I think there is a time and place to break that and push it, and maybe you're trying to make something, I mean, I think the best way to encounter Nickel Boys, for instance, is really like it's a work of art by Rommel, and that's a slightly different contract than I'm going to see this story I already know, or this character I already know, or this type of movie I already know what it is, and I know what I want from it. And I think those are subtly different, and yet there is overlap, I think, in all of this. I also think there's just a reality to human anatomy and how long you want to stay seated. I just want to bring intermissions back. I think they're great. I love seeing movies in India where they're 4.5 hours long, and bring a meal and you dance and you go buy ice cream.
Go to the bathroom. Yeah,
exactly.
You don't miss anything. So
yeah.
Marco, how about you?
Of course, I disagree with this idea that long running time means a bad editing. I would suggest to watch Satan Tango by Bellatar. It's a 7-hour long. It's an incredible movie. It's a masterpiece. Or 1900 Novecento by Bernardo Bertolucci. It's 5 hours long. I mean, we'll just it's their masterpiece. And it depends on the movie and his needs, because I have this romantic idea that the editor is like a midwife and has to bring it out the latent truth that you can feel in the footage. It's like a Socratic meiotic process. You know what I mean? And so there is a truth in the footage. You have to just to bring it out. So you have to feel, you have to hear, you have to listen to the needs of the film.
Yeah, I love that analogy. Your editors are midwives.
Yeah.
I would just add to that I think we're co-parents. We're not just midwives. We're co-parents that our hearts and our DNA is flowing into this. Everything. We have voices. We're not technicians. This is our means to communicate art to the rest of the world. And so I use that sort of the picture sort of idea, or the other thing I used to do in art school was make collages I think being an editor is no different. Like we're getting all these little bits and pieces and throwing them on the canvas, and so we're not just the person who's helping deliver. We are the co-parent. We are the captains of the ships, and you know, anyways.
Yeah.
Peter, how about you?
I'm not sure there's much left to say. I mean, I'd probably say go watch Casino, you know what I mean? And just
Yeah.
be entertained for a very long time. Yeah, I mean, some stories are long, some stories are short, and doesn't really have any reflection on the quality of the editing, or there are some really long movies that could be shorter, and there are some really short movies that could probably be longer, so yeah. And I agree with all the things these guys just said.
Mhm. Well, finally, what was the best note you've ever gotten from a director about an edit? So much laughter. They must be hilarious.
Never thought of them in terms of that way, I don't think.
Or just like a direction, whatever you want to call it.
My God.
I think I've heard a director say to me, "Do that again," you know, like do more of that, you know.
They're very specific.
Yeah.
Same thing again.
I think when I was younger, more inexperienced, my goal was to have the first thing I show them have no notes. Just be like, "Oh, you did it.
Yeah.
Thank you." But that
Yeah.
isn't actually what editing is at all. You do I think the value of it is in the dialogue. So I don't know, harsh notes can be great. Like that's totally wrong, can be incredibly useful, and you can learn so much from them. So yeah, I'm still thinking about the best note.
I feel like it's kind of I don't know. I can't remember a single note. I feel like every note's like a conversation, so it's not kind of like specific in a sense. Every now and then you might get a director that says, "I want 3 more frames on that," but it's not usually like that. It's kind of
That's not that interesting.
it's not that interesting. It's more. I think it's a dialogue, and I think also the more you work with someone, the less notes feel like notes, and just it's just the work, and you just kind of get into conversations about the material and the story, and it turns into much more than just a note, I guess. So it's very hard to pinpoint one that stands out.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't really know if there are bad notes, good notes, interesting. They are all notes are really interesting, and even as you said, Nicola, even if they are very bad notes, or it's you have to learn from this, and it's really great because it makes you think, and you're like, oh yeah. After first you're kind of pissed off, but then you realize that it's very interesting to think about it, and then to try to find ideas, and all notes are amazing to me, and there's no, I don't know, there's not a note that stands out or whatever. They are always interesting, and not only notes by the directors, notes by every viewer, I think, should make notes. And we should keep them in mind.
Yeah. I mean, because there's more than one person working on it, so for sure. Marco, how about you?
I have this funny story because when the first scene I edited with Luca, I was 26. I was on the project We Are Who We Are, the TV show, HBO TV show. I was there because he was looking for an assembly editor, and he wanted to test me and to figure out if we have the same vision, And so he asked me to edit a scene. And when I edited and I showed the scene to Luca, he say, "Oh, this is good, it's great. Oh no, you did a mistake. Found a mistake," and and he left the room. So it was great. I was so nervous. Where is the mistake? What I did? And then because he wanted to test me, so I found out that he didn't want to cut on the close up of one character, but it was great because he asked me to think more on the scene, and he stimulated my creative process.
I love that he left the room after he said that.
Yeah, because he gave me some time to
That you
focus
figured
more
it
on the scene.
That's
Awesome.
definitely, yeah. There's nothing better than keep going. You have more time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have the time to figure it out. Yeah. So I don't need to tell you.
Sometimes sometimes the directors, and John would do this too, is like, this scene is perfect. Do you want to try a different take on it? And I think it's like this idea that you can break something and start all over again and find something in that process. And I think that's really helpful to challenge yourself when you think that you've perfected something, and then you're like, okay, well, what if I was to cut this from a different point of view? Or what if I were to open it on a different shot, or really sort of hold the tension in a different way? And I think that's really helpful when you have somebody challenge you. And to Juliette's point, that, when an audience, listening to the audience, they are telling you, they don't always tell you the answers, but they're giving you little hints of things to help find your way. And sort of listening to that it can be great.
For sure. Well, we have to wrap, unfortunately, but it was great speaking with all of you. Thanks so much for your time, and congratulations again on all of your films.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Have a good one.